I feel I should be wearing my tuxedo for this review. We are, of course, talking about Spectre, the latest James Bond film. This one again starring Daniel Craig and again directed by Sam Mendes, who brought us Skyfall, which is to date the financially most successful out of all of the James Bond films. And when you watch this film, basically, you'll kind of realise that unlike the kind of the previous Bonds, like Sean Connery's Bonds, Roger Moore's Bonds, etc., the Daniel Craig Bond films have actually got this kind of overreaching plot. All these kind of these films that we've had before, Casino Royale, right up until now, basically kind of all tying together. And Spectre essentially is the culmination of this kind of this journey. So now Spectre, in case you don't know, is kind of the biggest bad guys in the kind of the James Bond universe, and the person at the head of this, I'm not going to spoil it for you in case you don't know, but it's, you know, it's fairly common knowledge, but it is ultimately the big kind of James Bond bad guy, and it's as much their origin story, or the person in charge's origin story, as well as we've seen James Bond's in the previous movies. But we realise Spectre basically is this huge organisation that has its kind of fingers in many pies, and more is revealed as the film progresses. There's also a B plot involving the kind of the consolidation of the 00's agents into the kind of, you know, the standard kind of security forces, and the rollout of surveillance across the kind of the world, things like that. It's a long movie, but the big thing to me is this film really captured that kind of sense of fun that the kind of the James Bond films used to have, that I feel the Daniel Craig movies up until now have kind of steered away from. This film is actually quite funny. It's definitely not as dark as the kind of the other James Bond films, and it's more of a roller coaster ride. It has got a little bit kind of like picked apart in some of the kind of the reviews here, but I really enjoyed this film. I would really recommend this film if you want a good action romp. It does have a few problems, as I'll come on to personally, but for me, I'm not a huge James Bond fan, if I'm completely honest. I kind of enjoy them, but I never really follow them. I'm not all that fussed about seeing them on opening night and things like that. I'll see them eventually, but you know, I really enjoyed this film, and I kind of went out with it with relatively low expectations, but came out really enjoying this film and had a damn good time at the movies. So for me, like I said, I thought the action set pieces were excellent. They were, you know, well choreographed, possibly a little bit too well choreographed. You know, fantastic locations, obviously massive varieties of locations here. One of the complaints here that it kind of feels too long, and it is a long film, and it probably could do with shorting, but to me, I was never bored in this movie. The plot, I found a little kind of like convoluted at times, but come the end of the movie, I think everyone will pretty much understand what's going on, and it kind of all makes sense. I quite enjoyed that. There's kind of, you know, the peripheral characters here are all quite good. There are a couple who I feel were just a waste, but I'll come on to that. But overall, it's a fun film. You know, if you like the kind of the classic James Bond more than the kind of the Daniel Craig ones, you'll definitely kind of, I think, maybe like this. So, you know, overall, I really enjoyed this film. But let's talk about some of the kind of things that I thought were less good. So the couple of issues I had is that this film, for me, relies far too much on convenience. There's so many things that happen in this movie that just happen, that, you know, that just happen at the right time to the right people, and it's just so convenient, and it happens time and time again. It was my biggest bugbear in this film, that it just really just so much happens to luck. You know, it's just not planning, it's luck. The other thing, I mean, this criticism is true of the opening. With all James Bond films, you have this kind of opening little segment, and the last criticism is true of it, and this one's true of it as well. If you look back to Man of Steel, that film gets a lot of crap because everyone says, oh, you know, Superman should be looking after the kind of the public, and yeah, fair enough. But this one as well, James Bond puts the public in danger so many times. It's only luck that that stops loads of people getting killed. Now, I know James Bond isn't necessarily a superhero, he's an assassin, so that might not be his priority, but I thought, bloody hell, you know, if things had gone a different way here, thousands of people would be dead. But anyway, maybe a minor criticism. The other criticism I would have is some of the peripheral characters here are wasted. Now, we were sort of kind of led to believe that Dave Bautista's Mr. Hinks was going to be kind of like a henchman on the long lines of Jaws or Oddjob and things like that, but he isn't. He's just a kind of a generic heavy, and doesn't really have any sort of like anything memorable about him. He's got a fair amount of screen time and some quite memorable fight scenes, but he's just a heavy. He's just a kind of like a regular heavy who just seems to be a little bit bigger built than the majority of other heavies. So Mr. Hinks, wasted opportunity. Didn't do anything with him that I thought was going to make him memorable. But you'll kind of forget about him. The other thing is there are a couple of other characters here. I don't know why they were pretty much wasted. Monica, I'm going to slaughter her surname now. Monica Bellucci's character, throwaway, completely throwaway. A waste, to be quite honest. So there's a couple of instances like that. I don't know. There was just there's a kind of a secondary bad guy who some of the peripheral characters have to deal with as well. Not really all that threatening, I have to say, and a bit of a wasted opportunity there. So some of the peripheral characters are a little weak to be quite honest with you. But that's my criticism. I haven't really looked at any of what other critics have said about what they didn't like about it. But to me, it is a fun film. It's definitely a romp. It's not something you can take too seriously. There's lots of actions, loads of different kind of like locations, and yeah, it's all kind of very sort of choreographed and kind of like not realistic. Maybe moving away from the kind of the sort of Jason Bourne style films that maybe some of the other Daniel Craigs have been doing. But a fun film. I enjoyed it. I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.